A lot of queens do all-stars and curb stomp their competition, but no one has done it quite to the level as Raja Gemini. Many returning queens figure out how to excel in challenges that they flopped in the first time around, or maybe in their all-stars run, they really soar on the runway, sometimes in a very unexpected manner. Some all-stars come back and simply prove why we loved them the first time around and just do what they did the first time, but just a little better. But Raja does all of those things and more in All-Stars 7. Throughout her All-Stars run, she references herself with her iconic icon workroom entrance to her upscaled she 3P ho look. She does an absolute banger job at just about every one of the challenges and is objectively the strongest on the runway of that entire group by bringing her own unique fashion POV, blending that through a global level, and filtering that through what is eye-catching on television. Each week, she proves to us as an audience, as well as the panel of judges, why she is that girl from season 3. Why she won it, and why she deserved it again in All-Stars 7. Hi everyone, my name is Jer. Today I'm going to be basically rejudging all of All-Stars 7, redistributing stars, not taking into consideration the blocking element at all. And I'm not gonna lie to you all, Raja's gonna get a lot of points. Because in my opinion, Roger dog-walked this competition and showed those young queens why she is a legend and why she always will be. That song at the beginning of the competition, Legends Never Die, that's Raja. Her legend will never die. I want to be clear starting out that I think everyone in this cast is phenomenal. From Jada, the most recent winner, to Viv, the only contestant from a non-US season. Each one of them were incredible in the areas that they specialize in. Some of them were better at runways, some of them were better at comedy, some of them were better at acting or sewing. But Raja, to me, was the very clear front runner the entire time. And she wasn't always given the flowers that she deserved, likely because she wasn't on the vision board to be the winner of the whole thing. And yeah, she got the she done it done had. But is that enough of a prize for a legend like Raja? Raja comes in hot, wearing her icon workroom entrance look. An upscaled, tongue-in-cheek reference to her purple people eater look from season 3. And it really is, I think, a travesty that we did not get to see those side-by-sides that they love to do, where they show their original workroom entrance and then their current one. Because Raja and Jinx were the only two who did an upscaled look of that original walk-in, and I would have loved to have seen those side by side so that people could see these are the same divas, they're just coming back harder. She then immediately sets a super high bar for that I'm crowning runway and shows what that standard of drag is going to be that we should expect from her the whole rest of the season. Raja may not have been the strongest in that challenge, but I don't think that girl groups are her thing, and that's fine. Not everyone can be good at everything. Jinx isn't good at sewing. And let's be so real, that was 100% Monet and Shay's week. However, I am of a very strong opinion that I think Evie also banged out that challenge. And from my perspective of rejudging this whole thing, Evie deserves a top 2 placement because of that I'm crowning look, on top of her Oddly It's Evie line, which I think is one of the more memorable lines of that entire girl group. And so for me, I would give the top 2 to Evie as well as Shay, because I think they made their mark in a really spectacular way that first episode. But back to Raja, because that's who this video is about. This genderless I'm crowning look was such a perfect stamp of who Raja is, was, and always will be. Episode 2, the Snatch Game, is where I would give Raja one of the many wins that I think she deserved this season. Jinx, I think we can all agree, dominated that second bracket of the Snatch Game. And it's my opinion that both brackets had some really strong character choices. Round 1, I think the standouts for me were Monet for that I'm gonna f in the ass Mike Tyson. That was so funny and such a different take on what I think anybody thought of what Mike Tyson was gonna be on the Snatch Game. I also really loved Shay's Elsa Majimbo. I thought it was a great time. I thought she took her character to a fun place, and I think she allowed herself to have just as much of a good time this time around as she did with her Naomi Campbell. And my other top was Raja, purely for the visual artistry and the history of bringing Madame to the Snatch Game. I had seen clips of Madame prior to Raja being on Snatch Game, so I understood the references and what she was doing and why she was doing them. And I thought it was a refreshing take on what has ultimately, I think, become very stale about Snatch Game in general. Trinity's take on Lucifer was cute, but her win in this challenge I think is purely for storytelling purposes because she was blocked and couldn't win a star. And I think competitively it's a smart way for production to secure that Jinx Monsoon is the sole star winner of this challenge and make sure that she's a little bit ahead of everyone else. It is my solid opinion that Jinx was always slated for the finale, so the producers did whatever they could to try and help scoot her in that direction. Not that she needed it, she's a star and a legend, but I do think that there was some hand in helping her get there. Having Jinx be the solo point winner in this challenge immediately sets her a bar above everybody else, who could potentially surpass her later on in the competition if they happen to be rewarded a little too early. Say that they gave a win to Shea or Monet, who did very good in different brackets of the Snatch Game and performed well on the runway. Producers know that more sewing challenges are coming down the road that Shea might succeed in, and more performance challenges are coming down the road that Monet could succeed in. If they gave points to either one of them now, that could knock out Jinx from a finale spot at the end of the competition. Anyways, back to Raja, who did not only exceptionally well in round 1, but then in round 2 also does a fantastic job. Objectively, again, I think we all can agree, Jinx Monsoon dominated round 2. That was a masterclass of what Snatch Game should look like and what it could look like. It was beyond performance, it was transcendent. The other two standouts in this round for me were Trinity's Leslie Jordan, which was very funny in its authentic approach to who Leslie was. And also Raja's Deanna Freeland. When Robbie did this character in season 8, we got a great representation of how not to do this character. Raja brought visual artistry with how she decided to paint herself, and she brought an easy to understand characterization that we all could latch onto to understand the humor and the comedy she was bringing. Raja's performance to me was very reminiscent of old Match Game episodes where there's a slightly older contestant who doesn't quite hit the mark on the answer, but they think that their answer is the cat's pajamas. Even if nobody else does, they're smirking and giggling at their own answer and think it's funny. This felt like a real person sitting in that room, not like a drag queen sitting in the room and doing a performance. And I think a mark of a good entertainer is someone who can allow you to suspend reality. Someone that makes you think, I'm not just watching a show, I'm watching a real person do something. There are two things I gravitate towards with Snatch Game performances. One of those is just a really bang up, authentic characterization of someone. See Pandora doing Cheryl Canning, Jackie Cox doing Lisa Rinna, or Anya Nerve doing Eddie Murphy. The other thing I gravitate towards is a characterization that is so off the wall and bananas that its unbelievable depiction is somehow believable and hilarious. See Jinx as Judy, or Bendela as Dame Maggie Smith, or Alaska as Mae West, Ginger as Adele. These characters that are so far to the left of whatever I was expecting that they veer into, that is freaking hilarious. To me, Raja did both of those things. She took a character that was kind of unknown to the general public, imprinted a characterization onto her in order to make her funny and approachable, and she played up those mannerisms. Her performance in both rounds stood out to me, and I think she kept up with Jinx in a way that a lot of performers are not really able to do well in the Snatch Game. Sometimes when there's one person dominating, someone else feels the need to act a fool and be crazy in order to catch attention. But Raja didn't need to do that. Her second character was a little more subdued and she was still just as funny to me. And then Raja appears on the runway later this episode in this London-esque streetwear look with the most eye-catching cherry red coat and this turquoise snake skin underneath. It's so good. Her visual and styling choices up until just episode 2 have been actually next level stunning. This week, I think even though Trinity was great in the Snatch Game round 2, I was more impressed with what Raja did in both rounds, as well as being more impressed with Raja on the runway. And so, Jinx and Raja both get my points for week 2. Week 3 is an interesting one because I want to give flowers to Jada for this matrixy look that she sewed. However, in my opinion, I think Raja dominated all 3 categories, where Jada did very solidly in the first 2 categories, banged out the last one, where Raja did, I think, perfect in all of them. I don't care what the judges said about that Olivia Newton-John Waters look. I understood the reference and the inspiration, and I don't think that it was lacking in mustache size. I was feeling what she was putting down. Plus, her portrayal of Vanna White was a more earnest visual presentation that, for me, I think puts her just a few short points above Jada. And then Raja had the absolute audacity and gall to create this beautiful golden structured gown with these huge ruffled puff sleeves and all of this volume on top and this sleekness below, adding to this eye-catching thing she's been doing all season so far. Her choices in construction on this garment are inspirational in the exact same way that Jada's and Trinity's were. And so at the end of the day, for me, my favorite Vanna look was Raja. I think everyone struggled to connect with that middle category quite a bit, and my higher looks were Trinity and Evie, where in that third category it was Trinity, Raja, and Jada hands down. All that to say, Raja's hand is on my throat during that challenge. And so I would give the win to Raja and Trinity. Week 4, Fairy Tale Justice was a great episode for a lot of these contestants. But I do want to complain. I'm still upset with the script writers for creating so many straight men roles, because I think it really hurt specifically Shay and Monet. Those roles were not designed to be funny. They were designed to be the more subdued characters so that the funny ones could stand out. Once again, I think that Raja was very strong in this challenge. But when I look at the whole of the room, I think that what Trinity did with that improv, coming in as that throwaway character witch and going kind of share with it, was hilarious. She stole the show, she stole the scene in the same way that I think Viv did. And on the runway is where Trinity snatches the win just a little more severely than Viv did. And so for me, the win goes to Jinx and Trinity. Jinx for that absolute psychotic performance that is still memorable to this day. And Trinity for what she did, not only in the challenge, but also on the runway. Week 5 is Draguation speeches, and I am here once again to give flowers to Raja, but also to Evie. This was an odd challenge because I still don't understand who the target demographic was. Draguates. Huh? This easily could have been geared towards kids who graduated during the pandemic lockdown, didn't get to walk with their friends and get perceived by their family for the hard work they did by sticking through high school or even college. Maybe they were feeling lost about where to go with their lives because everything felt so bleak and empty post-pandemic lockdown. But also because the challenge was sort of judged based on how much the contestants deviated from the assignment. Jinx and Raja won that original challenge because they went with this astral witchy performance, something that nobody else really did, which was more of an earnest keynote speaker vibe. And I stand by Raja winning this challenge. It was so inspirational and so funny, but also she put a big exclamation point on why she deserved the win with that veiled it look. And that literally knocked the wind out of me. Where I do think someone else deserved more flowers that week is Evie. Evie's story was sort of running into the ground a bit. She was getting frustrated with her position in the competition, not really feeling like she was standing out, and was expressing a lot of doubt and failure feelings. And I found it beautiful how in the challenge, she embraced failure and looked at the challenge and said, sometimes you gotta fail in life in order to do well. Sometimes you have to do bad to see how you can do good. And her leaning in on losing in order to win is very House of Love, 1. But 2 is really real, something that a lot of people can connect with. and it was good for her overall storyline. Her speech was great real-world advice for a challenge that was somewhat silly in nature, and I found that she blended her own personal narrative into the challenge in an interesting way. And so this was a great story moment for both Raja and Evie. Plus, Evie's veiled it runway is probably one of the prettiest looks that she did all season. It looked like an upscaled version of something she would have worn on season 11, and that made my heart happy. Plus, if Evie is in the top 2, we do not have to watch Jinx flub her way through Better in Color by Lizzo. Why didn't they switch those lip sync songs around? Like, come on. Week 6 is Total RuQuest Live, a 90s parody challenge, with my favorite 90s girl group member as the runway inspiration, Dolly Parton. What does she have to do with this challenge? This episode is frustrating to watch because it is the most narrative heavy of the entire season. Jinx and Viv's storyline had really been bubbling up to a place that was getting hard and uncomfortable to watch. And the producers leaned in on that story even harder, likely to solidify Viv as someone who was the antagonist to Jinx, and therefore we as an audience would be more sympathetic towards Jinx winning. I think the producers wanted to push this quasi-Relaska Talks thing so hard onto Jinx again. Like, look, the lovable weirdo is being disliked and being ganged up on by this clique that's in the room, and then there's this person who is rallying against them to make sure they don't win any more points. And I don't think that narrative ever clicked or stuck, because as an audience member, it doesn't read like Viv is trying to be malicious. She's just trying to make the competition as fair and even as possible because they can sense that Jinx is going to win, so they're doing whatever they can to slow her down. The producers did have the last laugh in the end because the next challenge is a sewing challenge, but that's beyond the point. The main challenge was about embracing this 90s vibe, which Shea and Monet objectively did. I think Monet was arguably the strongest performance in the competition, and Shea's line, "What's up, boo, is your CD skippin'?" is the most emblematic 90s lyric that existed across the entire board. And I think on the runway, Monet found a way to connect her own unique POV with Dolly Parton. I always found it odd that the judges connected with Evie's alternative route to presenting Dolly, but then used Shea's inauthentic portrayal to sort of nail in that she wasn't going to win. Both Shea and Evie's looks were a little bit of a departure from the original look, and to me, I think Evie was a little more egregious in the way that she performed as Dolly. Not that it's a bad thing, but it wasn't quite Dolly Parton. If the goal was to reward someone who went a little more outside of the box, Jada, in my opinion, was a stronger choice than Evie. Not only did she have a storyline already building up about not having a ton of wins, but her line, "Just like diarrhea, we exploded in love," is such a psychotic, batshit line that it veers into iconography. And her Dolly look, in my opinion, was certainly more authentic than Evie's. Viv was, in my opinion, very solid in the challenge, but was she so excellent talking about foreskin that she beat out Shea and Monet? I don't know. The producers deciding to lean in on storyline this episode, something that they had been kind of actively avoiding up until this point, makes this episode stand out a little bit like a sore thumb, in my opinion. And it's very out of left field in comparison to the episodes before and after it, which don't rely too much on story to guide the challenge narrative and the judges' critiques. And so, for me, I would give the win to Shea and Monet. Again, Shea's look may have been a departure from original Dolly Parton look, so is Evie's. And the judges responded positively to Evie's departure where they didn't respond positively to Shea's. And I hate double standards. Week 7 is Legendary Legend looks, which I think is a really cool concept for an all-winners cast, because it's really about branding yourself by way of RuPaul. Use Ru's costuming as a point of inspiration for your look. Show us your artistry through that. I almost interpret this challenge as if it were an alternate universe where the queen who gets the garment is the supermodel of the world in that timeline. Like if Raja was supermodel of the world, she was the one who started Drag Race, what would her season 7 promo look like? If Shea was the supermodel of the world and she started Drag Race, what would she wear during the Sugar Ball? For me, there are 3 standouts in this challenge. Trinity, obviously because of that baby doll look, filtered through pageantry that Trinity is so well known for. It was so perfectly on brand, and I think it took the idea of what the challenge was, filtered that through Trinity in a way that made sense to us as an audience. Jada's homage to RuPaul to Diana Ross found a way to blend both elements seamlessly together, as well as incorporate Jada into the mix. Those crispy, clean lines of that golden garment were so luxe. And my final high placement, you guessed it, is Raja. Distressed garments are incredibly difficult to pull off. Like, really hard to pull off. Because they can look like a mistake very fast. And I love how Raja embraced the discordance of that look. She managed to make it even higher fashion and supermodel, but also infused volume into that garment without making it look messy or cumbersome. And that again is also hard to do. For me, it's hard to decide between Raja and Trinity for that second top 2 placement. Because for me, Jada's got this on lock. She managed to make a garment that looked like it was her interpretation of what Diana Ross would wear, and managed to use someone like RuPaul as an iconic inspiration for how she would look like to that VH1 tribute. I think it was VH1. For me, I'm gonna break this tie by removing the garments from the performers and putting them on someone else. If I were to take off Trinity's dress and put it on another contestant in the room, would I know specifically that that was Trinity's garment? So for example, if I were to take off Rue's garments and put it on any one of those girls, I think it would look odd and inauthentic. Maybe the only one who could pull off some of them would be Raja, because she really can wear anything in my opinion. But on most of those girls, a lot of those lines and the shapes would look inauthentic to them. They would look like they belonged on somebody else, because Rue's aesthetic is tailored specifically to her. If I were to take off that Born Naked look and put it on Trinity, I think it would look odd. I don't think it would look like it came out of her closet. I don't think it would look like it came out of her suitcase that she prepped for Drag Race. However, if I were to take off Trinity's dress and put it on Shea in particular, I think it is likely that that could have come out of Shea's closet. We've seen Shea wear and do mermaid gowns before, and I don't think it would look inauthentic to her. Where I really don't see anybody else in that cast being able to wear what Raja did effectively and well. It's got Raja's stamp on it. So for me, that's what gives her the win over Trinity. Week 8 is Santa's School for Girls, a hilarious parody of Mean Girls meets Scream Queens, but make it Christmas. There are 2 queens who left me absolutely cackling over their performance, and that was Viv for her headmistress. Please, please Noel! And Raja for that silly little goth girl. I was giving my boyfriend a frosty. Was so hilarious, genuinely funny for Raja, who wasn't a particularly phenomenal actor in season 3. I think they both significantly stepped up their cookies from their original season, delivered a dynamic and interesting to watch show in this challenge. And then we get to this runway nitty nitty bang bang, where Raja blows me out of the water once again with this updated She 3PO look. Knitwear is difficult to make CUNTY, but Raja managed to do that while also referencing herself and riffing off of an original piece that she made, while translating that textile into something unrecognizable. I don't think anyone would look at her outfit and immediately be able to clock that's knitwear. Both her and Viv were transformative not only in the challenge but also on the runway. And so for me, the 2 of them get the points. Week 9 is Dance Like a Drag Queen, where the season fatigue is really starting to set in. I'm not a huge fan of this challenge because creating virality is hard to do, and it sometimes comes across a little forced. This isn't the most inspirational challenge of the season in my opinion, and I think even the girls are feeling the whelmingness of where things are right now. I think a lot of them can see the writing on the walls for the finale. Plus, Jinx is becoming an absolute mad woman and is horfing down peanut butter sandwiches and cackling to herself in the corner of the room. The madness and the cabin fever is starting to set in. You know the scene in Muppet Treasure Island where they've all got cabin fever and they start singing about it? That's the girls right now, specifically Jinx Monsoon. This is yet another branding challenge, but interpreted through what is considered viral by social media standards. Again, a kind of odd challenge. This week, I want to reward both contestants who circumvented the parameters of the challenge and chose to do things their own way. And that would be Jinx and Viv. Both of them understood that dancing wasn't their forte, so they did something else. And they were both funny and memorable, and I think they branded themselves in a way that would go viral. I know some of you are gonna get on me for why I'm not giving a win to Monet, but here's why. I think Monet was memorable. I think her dance moves were iconic, and I think they are actually something that is stuck through. But I do think it's a problem that Monet's signature moves did not originate from her own brain. It originated from RuPaul, who fed her the material. And I think the key to winning Drag Race is by listening to Ru's guidance. But it's also incredibly important to originate your own concepts and be able to fulfill those during the challenges and on the runway. It's why some girls that follow Ru's opinion on a design challenge, who they give a win to, who I think objectively did good, should have been able to originate that on their own without needing help to do so. Especially when they have to redo the entire garment. It's one thing to take a little bit of information and run with that. If you listen and do a good job, that's great. There's always going to be directors in entertainment who are going to help you filter through what you should do for your performance. But in this case, Monet's two signature moves were not from her. Again, they were from Ru. And for me, I want to reward two people who did come up with their own concepts, branded themselves without any help. Because you should be able to brand yourself without guidance. And that's not to say anything bad about Monet at all. It's just to solidify why I'm giving that win to Viv over Monet. And to be honest, I liked what Monet did on the runway better than what Jinx did, because I hated all of those reveals. I think they were boot nasty. But I think she still excelled in the challenge. And I like that her and Viv both circumvented what production wanted them to do, which was to create a dance video. My final note for this episode is I think it would have been a good bow end to the Jinx and Viv drama that had been boiling up all season. Making them lip sync to this iconic spoken word monologue would solidify the end of their story, since this inevitably would have been the final block of the season. Episode 10 is the Kennedy Davenport Honors Hall of Shade. Still such a mouthful. I actually have so little notes on this episode. I think that Jinx was genuinely a treat to watch, incorporated her humor and sensibility well, and I think Trinity overcame her struggles with comedy challenges and soared in an unexpected way. In my opinion, they both justifiably won this episode. No notes. Episode 11 is a spectacular episode to wrap up any final stories, give a final showcase on what makes each one of these queens special. And I think initially it doesn't come off as an episode that should have had 3 stars hinging on it. And I still kind of think that. In a fair world, I think there should have been a lip sync Lollapalooza SmackDown at this point with 3 stars hinging on it. Both the top 2 finalists would get 2 points each, and then whoever won the final lip sync would get an additional third. And then I think the finale should have included the talent show as one final bow on the season, with a top 2 inevitably lip syncing for the crown. Then it removes all of this power that they put on lip sync for the crown Lollapalooza SmackDown that really didn't have much stakes or weight on it at all, since we can clearly see that the finale lip sync didn't actually matter. Because if it did, Monet should have won the season. With it taking the power out of that final lip sync is ceremonial over anything, and they can give the crown to whoever they want to give it to. In this scenario, I think it would have been less clear that Jinx was meant to win the whole thing. But let's talk about the actual variety show, because Monet snatched it. That was her week. Fully hands down. I think all of us, including the contestants, were expecting and Monet defied those expectations and knocked it out of the park by delivering this breathtaking performance. Additionally, Raja brought so much rich culture to her performance, and you could feel her soul in that room as she danced. I love when queens bring their heritage to Drag Race, and I wish the judges did a better job at positively rewarding the queens who do that, rather than just give the queens a "I like that" generic feedback. And so for that performance, Raja is my other top 2 of the week. Shay had a beautiful song, and I love that she finally got another win after being denied at least one other solidly deserved one during the girl groups. But her win, in my opinion, was so story driven that it felt an inauthentic win. Evie and Viv were likely also both frustrated with not being able to go to the finale, but they received little to no storyline about any frustrations they were having. Viv's early frustrations kind of died around episode 7, and then they stopped focusing on her. And both of them are glazed over as if production really doesn't care much about them. And so I think Shay's win was purely for story. And I think it really harmed Jada, who should have probably been in the finale for doing good through all of the season and not struggling in the same way that Shade was kind of struggling. So anyways, both Monet as well as Raja get the 3 points for this episode. And that means Raja's front running even more. So going into the finale, I have Raja in the lead spot, clearly. I think she absolutely dominated the competition, and if we were to redistribute this wins, we would see that Raja really was the it girl this season. I think she proved not only why she is a legendary legend, but why she won season 3 in the first place, and that she could come back and compete in a modern season and actually keep up with younger queens who were more freshly in the drag race sphere. It is this channel's opinion that no one has done it like Raja Gemini. And quite frankly, I don't think anyone ever will going into an All-Stars season. I think her actual run, not the one that production tried to package and sell to us, is untouchable. Yeah, she didn't do good in the girl group challenges, but beyond that, Raja soared. And I think she easily could have won this season if production had her in the mind for that ultimate win. And that has been my redistribution of wins through All-Stars 7. Thank you for watching this little spicy take video. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, if you are interested in more of my spicy opinions, alternate universes, or drag race recaps for the current seasons. If you want to check out my Drag Race podcast, you can find that under That Sounds Gay where you find your podcasts. And if you would like to support this channel by becoming a member, you can check that out right next to that subscribe button, and you can watch a couple of these posted videos several days earlier than the general public gets to. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all on the flip.